In memory of Reg Cordick, this is Matt Curry's Sunday afternoon coffee hour. My goal in this coffee hour is to explore the idea that perhaps there's some reasonable sympathy with those who refuse to speak out or say anything about such issues as I have a habit of bringing to the table in my letters, testimony, and research and review. Let's say they're sympathetic people. There was a situation in Nazi Germany where a man was dissenting the Germans and was beset upon by the forces of Joseph Goebbels, who beat him to death in front of his family, in front of his parents, in front of everyone else in the family. And when the man was dead, the punishers turned to his family and said, "You have any questions?" And they were, "No, that's cool. That's cool." So, the idea has some precedence and sympathetic reasons. Of course, it's not clear that we're actually dealing with those sort of sympathetic reasons. There are actually people who actually approve. So, I'm exploring how could that be? I'd like to give some of the explanations that periodically show up on the radar of the intelligence system that they have built to explain themselves by talking sideways about it. One of them is that I'm not the black man, so I can't be special. If I'm fed a nerve agent and I'm deaf and my teeth are poisoned and my heart is poisoned and I'm given erectile dysfunction and my girlfriends are humiliated and raped and my friends are threatened, even murdered. I'm not special. I'm not the black man. You can't expect them to care. This is a time when everyone is united that we must care about the black man. There's a petty issue involved. If you announce in favor of a penny in a crime that big, he could get millions. I can't really say it the way you do. They're enculturated to the idea. I'm not particularly enculturated to the idea, but somebody who has millions bribed a lot of folks and said, "Let us get away with this." Someone hot shot in command, who you can't question. So they poison me. They take me as a souvenir of hell. They torture me. I'm prematurely old. I'm friendless. I'm deaf, and they do more injuries, threaten more injuries. Actually, it compares. Wouldn't you rather be a torture object in a humiliated voodoo doll than somebody who is already dead or somebody who has cancer? All these things will put me at risk of all of that. And somebody who has something worse, there are things that are worse. And so we should be allowed to do this to you as a form of curiosity shop to raise money for the people who have it worse than you. And that's the idea that they want to catch on. They want to be able to pick somebody off, torture them, sexually abuse them, home invade them, steal everything they have, and say, "We gave it to the all poors." So there's a series of things that you can put together to identify and justify the police negligence, because it's ridiculous that the police would. That we live in a society presumably of laws and safety, normative ideas of conduct. I mean, you would think a black professor who said a white student can be tortured because they're not special would be hauled out of school and fired, you would think, instead of promoted. So Curiously, it's not even white rage, so, I mean, it's not even black rage. One of the most incriminating issues is what Wilzel was doing on Mount Desert Island. He was promoting Joseph Goebbels, and they were saying, well, he was also promoting the black man. That's a lot to put on your plate. Joseph Goebbels is promoting the black man. And that's supposedly not related to Dr. Proctor's mountain of swastikas that he called sacred the African symbols. Supposedly completely unrelated to a 7-foot tall black man who was dragging me around as a child, threatening to kill me, demanding the right to sleep in my house before we moved in, which is symbolic to them. All very strange. But you have this situation where they say the magnitude of the issues is the reason you should be sympathetic. Shush, we can't question that because of the magnitude of the issues. The magnitude of the money that has been stolen, the magnitude of the settlement that should be rightfully yours, but we would take from you immediately because we like to win. The magnitude of winning this way as a form of crime, which is refused to be admitted as a form of crime. The magnitude of what John Schulman did, the magnitude of what was afoot with Wilzel, the magnitude of neglecting that, and the magnitude of what came then with the bonus attack. And they say, well, we implied that we knew what was going on. What does imply have to do with anything? You can imply this, you can imply that. It doesn't mean anything. Where are the people who know how to speak clearly what happened? Well, we can't. We have to imply because of the magnitude. The reason they're implying is because they still have more up their sleeve. I mean, but let's presume you sympathize with the idea that that's too much to say. Even that is too much to say. So that's where we're going with all this: is magnitude of police negligence. Police are probably very sensitive to the fact that I walked into their offices and said, I would like to discuss with you the evidence that, and they said, get out of here. Over and over and over again. Right from me that time before the crime or something. When I got in trouble as a child for talking to them, they laughed. You know, I went and they said, why didn't you talk to us? I did talk to you. And you got my head smashed in by the people I talked to you about. Wasn't that nice of them? So I talk about the magnitude of the issue. They're supposedly warriors, right? That's a common community college. I show them this image, they take it down. So what's wrong? Oh, take that down. I'll show it to you. Okay. That's a woman who was in on the anthrax attack, standing outside the World Trade Center with this letter next time on the goes. Why can't they talk about that? Well, see, what Houdini does best, this is a Houdini job, right? People have heard me say, oh, don't say Houdini job. Now let's pretend we're sympathetic to the idea that it's not a Houdini job in every single tiny nook and cranny of a way. Let's say it's just a Houdini job in a way. No, I don't want to hear no Houdini job, he said. Calm down, I say. I just want to tell you what's Houdini about it. Okay. I'm sympathetic to your in this coffee hour. Okay, what's Houdini about it is questions disappear. Oop, oop, they go right out of the hat. They vanish. Goodbye question. So how the questions disappear. That's a real trick. What would the questions be? You don't want to ask that. There are no questions. What do you mean there are no questions? Why did Dan Rather say the Kennedy's head went forward 5 minutes after he said that he saw for himself the Kennedy's head goes backwards? What's the missing question? Which direction did his head go? No. Why did Dan Rather lie? It's the missing question. Everybody knows which direction it went. Now, he was the only person who'd seen it who was going to see it for years, and he misreported it. Journalism is a conscientious objection to lying, and he bases his career on anti-journalism thing. And we've been stuck with this anti-journalism. So you can't ask a question. Who is this menacing person outside the World Trade Center? Because people start sucking their thumbs. There's no such thing as a World Trade Center. No, what do you mean World Trade Center? Get that out of here. Why is she standing menacingly in front of the World Trade Center? Well, for one thing, she's a friend of Kim Kardashian and Yoko Ono and Donald Trump. So, oh no, no, she's not standing menacingly in front of the World Trade Center. No. Well, she is standing in front. She was in. Her namesake called me when Houdini pulled his Houdini number on December 8th, 1980. But we're sympathetic to your claim that that didn't really happen. Remember, we're sympathetic to you in all this. She was in Satanism studies in the 70s. Her namesake calls me, okay? Before AIDS, now she's a leader of ACT UP. She's a leader of AIDS Plague Mouse, she calls herself. She pours blood on herself, right? She wants everybody to in high risk. She wants everybody to come out. She wants everybody to be as one with her dogma that they should have AIDS or perish, right? That's, I mean, so but why was she in Satanism in the 70s? She was also in immunogenetics in the 70s, and now she's leading the victims. Oh, well, that's very interesting. So we'll get back to that in a minute. I want to tell you this. This is an image from a film that was made by Errol Flynn, who lived in Laurel Canyon where Houdini lived, and met with Adolf Hitler. And you have this thing, it looks a little bit like Lazarus. It says rather us, and it with the U.S. over the swastika. Here, I'll show you. I told my counselor in Pittsburgh that, right? She said, "No." What do you mean, no? Yes, there's U.S. over the swastika. No, that looks like rather us. You know, no, that's German headquarters. Oh, is that what that is? And the RR, the backwards R and stuff, all that. No, no, you're cherry picking, I was told. Okay. So I believed that. You know, I said, okay, you must be right. I must be cherry picking, right? So I look at it frame by frame. I look at it frame by frame, one frame at a time. At things that go by too fast. People will accuse me of photoshopping this, but I didn't Photoshop this. It goes by too fast. This is what happens. Okay? You don't see it when you watch the movie, but it's on the film strip. There's Errol Flynn next to Ronald Reagan with the U.S. over the swastika and a sort of bust-like thing of it resembles Weasler in there. Okay, so there he is, and Errol Flynn met with Weasler during World War II. Adolf Hitler, he met with him. They put this on the outside the library where the joke's on you, right? And they knew this was going on. You know, I reported torture, and then these pictures of me after being tortured surface, but they say, no, no, no. You think you're special. Okay, so who else thinks they're special? I'll show you who else thinks they're special. This guy was a Japanese diplomat who followed Jack Ruby around. This picture is him with the death cab for cutie coming. What do I think I'm saying here? He's a Japanese man under a nuclear bunker sign. This is Oswald's death van over here coming out of the Dallas Police Department, right? Where there's a Japanese man under a nuclear sign, right? Look, these positioning of things are very interesting when you look at a sort of Hitler nun in a picture of me from childhood. A Hitler nun in a picture, maybe subject this to the rapid eye movement lie detector thing. Okay, I swear this. I sent a 1966 Kodak dated picture of me, dated 1966, in front of a garage on which was spray painted "I love Sarah, Sarah Ann," to Jim Mars. He may have it still. I mean, his family may have it in this stuff, right? So what gives that, like, I go through, then they have this movie script, and I tell people it correlates the shooting of Martin Luther King to Dee Dee's birthday. And they say, no, son. No, son. What do you mean, no, son? It does. So it correlates the shooting of Martin Luther King to Dee Dee's birthday. No, no, son. And they arrest me for pointing it out and say that I'm a paranoid schizophrenic for pointing out that this person calls attention to coincidences in the shooting of Martin Luther King to Dee's birthday. I just said, just uttered a fact. What's that have to do with paranoid schizophrenia? It's still in print. Like, happened with 1993. That was 30 years ago. It still says the same thing the day I walked in to the police services to show them. I find things like this in the filmmakers who made that script, you know. And if you know the slightest thing about the history of World War II cinema, you know that Charlie Chaplin put out a movie called The Great Dictator that Adolf Hitler actually went to see. I thought was funny. So, they start playing it back at us, right? So, what's the story here? The story here is that what they did was they teamed up with the people who did it in Seattle. They have a picture of Gail Burstyn at Seattle Center playing the violin with a geisha, and the whole script was about Midori Goto, the violinist, who was a hero of the gay community who violently attacked me in Pittsburgh, right? You see what kind of imagery they put in the newspaper when they came and violently attacked. And Diamond DeGaulle, the woman who was in front of the World Trade Center being menacing, is promoting an old Japanese strip called Double Suicide, and they actually make this the law. Patty Murray has people who demand double suicide from people who don't want to be double suicide. They actually, through the Seattle Clubhouse movement, they made Licky Chops porno of a child to sell money to help the victims of this crime that they commit. The images I showed you, Unit 732 has these gay images in a film too. So what we're talking about here is assassination of liberals, and they're calling it a cultural mandate. Now, those are some of the easy things to address. I didn't put those into play in order to um, educate you about them. I already know you don't want to be educated about them. I already know that you don't want to hear about it. What I wanted to do was show the Houdini trick of questions disappear. Okay, what is suggested by Hitler-looking man? Okay, it would be that um, parochial values, anti-sex, no sex before marriage. It's such a strong doctrine that people who break it should be killed. That would be like a Hitlerian idea, right? Nunzilla is a toy that everybody laughed about in the gay movement that I knew anyway. It has a wind-up toy, a nun that spits sparks. So, but there's no question there, right? You never ask what is the meaning of the symbolism of a Hitler-looking nun. You can go ahead and make a wind-up toy called Nunzilla. That's funny. But you don't ask what is the meaning. What is the meaning, for example, of double fantasy? No. No. What is the meaning of DF in double fantasy? No. No, son. You don't ask these questions. It's wrong to ask them. And if they come around, they beat somebody to death in front of the family. The family says, hey, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. No, I'm not saying I don't sympathize with you. This whole thing is about that I sympathize with you. I understand that you don't want to ask these questions. You voted for Obama, he was the savior. That's how it's going to go. So when we look at The government strictures. The government strictures are not, you comply with their demand for double suicide. That's pretty cut and dry. And we will kill you and anything you love if you ask for so much as a penny. That's pretty cut and dry. Yes, it's okay to use a nerve agent on a child who has been laughed at in Pittsburgh. You see, you don't question that because it's pointless to question it. It's clear. You think you're special because you're not the black man. If you're a white person who was laughed at as a child, they can use a nerve agent on you. That's the bottom line. Maybe not on you, but on me. They could do it to me. Why could they do it to me? It's just because, they make up, Shulman stories. Shulman was a man who had all sorts of things going about me, who was caught in an $8 million museum heist. Where the books went, how they got there, how the money got back to him. Those are questions. Houdini. Questions disappear right out from out of the hat. Zip, gone. No question. We don't ask that question. We don't ask the questions, or we really don't ask the questions related to how a Trump speechwriter was on board with Schulman. Houdini, goodbye question. Get out of here question. We don't ask why is the Republican Party incarcerated to push somebody named John Kennedy, who stands for the opposite of the John Kennedy that we all love. I mean, that we're not supposed to notice that happened. We're not supposed to notice that the man who tortured me included people named Donald. One of them was Donald Gruber, which is 50. 50 is an important signal. 50% of Schlickelgruber, which was Weisler's maiden name before he got married to fascism. He changed Lois Schlickelgruber was his pappy. So you have this terrible syndicate of names. Ronnie Zuzinski and Casper Ski. What happened? Why did you go out, Casper? Did you get her? Did you get stuck? Did you get her? Did you get stuck? And they had me locked in a house locked inside. I couldn't get out when they walked in and brutally tortured me as a child. Casper is a symbol. Ronnie and Casper. How many people in 1974 knew that Ronald Reagan and Casper Weinberg were going to work together? Who's this friendly ghost? Should they be talking about Argentina? They were talking about Argentina. Duke Edward had Weisler in Argentina. That's the friendly ghost. Okay, so they have this friendly ghost killed John Kennedy. Now we get another John Kennedy who means the opposite, but the friendly ghost has incarnated the opposite because it's the family of man. So move along, son. No, son. What was his house locked from the inside? Arc Labor. Arc? Yes, Arc Labor, Salk Research Labs was built by these people. Salk Labs, which is medical. It's one place that people actually openly talked about possibly having been the origin of the AIDS virus. And so Louis Kahn built them with this Arc Labor team, right? Louis Kahn was a Holocaust survivor, and all of those letters I showed you correlating the coincidences was from the Holocaust survivor community. At the University of Pittsburgh, some Holocaust survivors were approached with Bayer over making Zyklon B. People hear word of mouth sometimes in conspiracy circles. The press called Bush. George Bush's pappy was prosecuted under the Trading with the Enemies Act. He was. What does it mean to trade with the enemies? It means helping them manufacture things like Zyklon B to gas the Jews is what it means. And now the Holocaust survivors are saying, Bayer, we want to shake your hand. Why? They're still exterminating the bees and stuff. It's because they want to do it a little better, a little different, and be on board this time, do it to someone else. Do it to the whole overpopulation gig. Overpopulation. This comes from an era where they wouldn't let us talk about ecology. And we find these letters among a gang that has like a song called Flame over Africa. So, they broke the environmental modification treaty to pull this stuff. And they have the blasphemies from Blast Furnace Radio and all of this stuff. And you're supposed to say, yes, Your Highness, to the Appalachian fools who go along with us. Why? Because they beat somebody to death in front of the family. And then the family says, that's cool. That's cool. But I'm sympathetic not to because of that. That's not at all. It's even more sympathetic. They want to help beat the kid to death. They're like, yeah, this is cool. Really cool. So I'm super sympathetic to you. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sympathetic. Yeah, really sympathetic. Because there's money involved, and you think you're special. If you the one penny, but son, no son, and they slash or Shannon Harps over a penny about it. So no son. So how did the questions disappear is what I'm on about. I'm not talking to you to lecture. I'm not drawing this because I want to educate you about what happened. I don't want to familiarize you with the evidence. Don't go around saying there was Queerball trying to sell his story again, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm talking specifically here about how sympathetic you are, because questions can disappear in your presence, and I want to understand what it means for questions to disappear. That's all, because I want to help you disappear those questions by identifying them. Because you know, once they're identified, they can vamoose. Nobody needs to know the better about it, right? So I'm just trying to help you understand what the questions that are involved are. Did Errol Flynn would meet with Hitler during World War II? That's one question. Did Errol Flynn live in Laurel Canyon with Houdini? There's another question. So there's two questions that no longer exist because they have been identified, right? Did a 7 foot tall black man drag me around the house by the foot after taking me to the last house on the left? Just forget about it. There's no. Did he have the nickname of a funeral parlor? Just forget about it. Goodbye. Goodbye question. Was Shannon Harps's murder something that was in the works as a statement by the people who have me proximate to the crime? Don't ask that question. It's gone. Goodbye. No, everybody has grown up and moved on. Everybody has gone. I'm sympathetic to you. These questions have officially disappeared now. See, we don't have to ask these questions. We don't have to explore the meaning of these questions because they have been asked. It's called cathartic reasoning. You can even ask your guru penis about this. Okay, he just asked Penis Gabriel. Yes, that's right. If you try to suppress it, it will sublimate and come out somewhere else. So the best way to drive it into extinction is to ask the question, right? And that's how they disappear. They go poof and they're gone. No more questions. That's the magic trick of these. Don't say Houdini. I won't say Houdini. I'm not going to say Houdini. There's no question that it was. Houdini is a paranoid schizophrenic mindset. See, there's a book by a guy who I have it over here. But I don't want to leave the screen. I'm afraid you'll get bored or feel lonely if you don't see me while I'm talking. But it's called Magic and Schizophrenia, right? And that's where the Swami Nostra comes from. Frankel's logotherapy. They go poof, poof, zap, 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 zap. And it's the same little dialogue box from Hollywood. They say, there goes a black one. There goes a white one. Now it's subtle, and they tinker with the collective noggin that way. And they call it equity. It's building a sense of co-prosperity between all of us. No, you don't get to talk about ecology until we get the population under control. It's a compromise with Exxon. See, all of that has now officially disappeared. So you don't got to go call the KKK and tell them to go to Shed Jed. We got a pitchfork because there's a maniac out there who doesn't know what the questions were before they disappeared. Everybody knows what the questions were before they disappeared. The questions are gone. They've been asked. It's been open and closed. Goodbye questions. Houdini. Goodbye. So goodbye to the questions, and it's remarkable. It's in one. And you feel better now, right? All the questions have gone away. All the questions have gone away. Why is Reagan sitting under the U.S. over a swastika and a word that says rather us? See, there's no question there now. Bye, goodbye. What did goodbye? Bye. It's neat, you know. What did Will Zell promote besides the sacred black man and his swastikas of African warrior religion? Joseph Goebbels. So where's the question now? Since when does Joseph Goebbels advocate for the black man? Well, since Obama is the answer. Goodbye question, goodbye answer. It's all gone. Goodbye. What was he actually saying that I proved when he so courteously responded to my attempts to get him to respond to a question about what he said? What was he saying? He was saying, "What would you think of a scheme to?" Oh, wait a minute. Let me get my rapid eye movement. Stress evaluator. Hold up. What would you think of a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood? Is what he asked me. And goodbye. That never happened. What does he mean by that? What's he at the centerpiece of Her Majesty's experience part on Mount Desert Island about? Could care less. You see, because we want, because that's cool. That's cool. The questions have officially disappeared. So we're good with that, Everything has disappeared. And apparently, Reagan did not. Oh, that's cool. And what somebody told him, he said, I think I'll take up with John Schulman. That's cool. Where did the books went? What were they worth? Oh, nobody talks about that. Because the books are even more majestic in their performance than Houdini's questions. Houdini's questions disappear after you say that. We don't know what books. Nobody's told us what books, not the Smithsonian who reported it. We don't know from whom the books were taken exactly and to whom the books were given exactly. We don't know exactly how much they were worth or who the intermediaries were who bribed under the counter. The concrete vault of Flynn construction, where a couple of agents I saw looked like they were British, is impenetrable. You can go out there with night vision. You're not going to see through this concrete vault. And this was the dude who was always over at John Schulman's house on Cellar Run. Celeron isn't a masterpiece word from the hypnography of people who eat your psyche, as they like to say, at the neurotransmitter desk of Jaime Carbonell's Twister with Milnes. No, Celeron isn't a symbol of Herbert Simon's machine intelligence. No. What would it mean if it was? No, that's a Houdini question. That gets scuttled out the door with the Houdini books. So, who covered for Schulman all those years? We don't say the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. No, son. No, son. We do not say the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Well, why don't we say the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette? It's so much nicer when we say, was the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette involved? Because once you ask, was the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette involved, which they were, it disappears. Houdini, goodbye. The question is gone, poof, in a puff of smoke. Why are the organized gay communities working with the people who pulled it? Poof. See, goodbye question. There's no more question. Everything is fine and dandy because the questions have disappeared. The minute you ask them, they go away. See how simple it is? It's nice. I think we can do more work in the vocabulary department of asking the Houdini questions and get the great relief of seeing them just disappear. because I mean, it's exciting, right? It's an exciting, sympathetic thing that goes on. And you see somebody who you've known a long time beaten to death in front of you. That's cool. That's cool.